Good evening, everyone. A very special welcome to all our students who are joining us from across the region. My name is Michelle Narasingh. I am the PR and Marketing Officer for the Caribbean here at the Caribbean Examinations Council. We are looking forward to having a very informative and engaging session. At this time, I'm going to invite our Director of Technological Innovation, Mr. Rodney Payne, to bring welcome remarks. Mr. Payne.
Good evening. Thanks, Michelle. Good evening, candidates and parents from across the region and CXC staff. I'm delighted to welcome you, and I want to thank you for your resounding response to today's webinar. We appreciate you took the time to be with us, and we look forward to an interactive session with you. CXC is the preeminent examinations, assessment, and awarding body in the Caribbean, committed to developing the human capital of our Caribbean people through partnership for global competitiveness. When I speak of human capital, I'm referring to candidates like you here today. You are the future of the Caribbean. Through education, whether sciences, languages, business, humanities, or technical studies, you are poised to shape our region of tomorrow. CXC's suite of qualification and regionally and internationally recognized and accepted for admission into higher education institutions. In other words, your hard work and results will open the door to colleges, universities, or careers you envision for yourself. CXC has also been contributing to shaping the future of the Caribbean through our digital transformation. This has been demonstrated by our introduction of e-marking and e-grading, e-registration for schools and private centers, an SBA online submission platform for schools, e-assessment, both full and hybrid, and the e-pre-slip for distribution of results. Most recently, we developed an artificial intelligence framework for regional secondary education system and standards and guidelines for the use of artificial intelligence in assessments. I invite you to visit our website, www.cxc.org, to learn more about these initiatives. We understand that preparing for examinations can cause worry, but we want you to see it instead as an opportunity to demonstrate what you have been learning over the past months or years. Our presenters are here to support you with valuable tips, do's and don'ts, answers to your questions, and general advice to help you navigate your exams preparation with confidence. Hopefully, by the end of today's webinar, we can help to put your minds at ease. Remember, each one of you has the potential to succeed. Believe in your abilities, stay focused, and trust that your hard work will pay off. Thank you once again for being here. Let's make the most of this session and take a step closer to achieving your academic goals. Michelle?
Thank you very much, Mr. Payne. This event, we'd like to advise everyone that this event is also being streamed on our YouTube channel. So persons may also participate from that platform. That link has been dropped in our chat, so you can check it from there. At this time, we're going to move into the presentations. And I would ask all our participants to please drop your questions in the chat, or you can hold other questions until the end of the presentations. At this time, I'm going to invite our Acting Senior Manager for Examinations Development and Production Department, Dr. James Young, to speak to us about the CSEC Visual Arts and the CAPE Arts and Design Program. Dr. Young?
Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to have you, and allow me to share just a few nuggets and some reminders to the candidates who are preparing for the visual arts and the CAPE Art and Design examinations. For CSEC Visual Arts, in preparation for the examination, and we've noticed this and we've taken this approach, a memo again also will be shared, is to ensure that the instructions are followed carefully to optimize your performance. And we are asking that the instructions on the examination paper are carefully read and followed. And I will outline some of what the requirements are. The sketches, the working drawings, the explanatory notes should be taken into the examination for all of the options except for drawing. And that is critical because the sketchings, the working drawings, the explanatory notes should be securely attached to the completed work, as it is part of what is being assessed when it is submitted to us. So if the completed work comes to us and it is missing the sketches, the working drawings, the explanatory notes, that reduces your ability to gain maximum marks. After the examination, ensure to take photos of the finished work, especially for the fragile or the large scale work, like if it's pottery, etc. And these should be included in the documents showing your preliminary studies. And if the work requires drying time, like the sculpture, etc., please indicate to the invigilator if the drawing, the painting, etc., it needs to dry. Indicate the same to the invigilator, as the invigilator and the teachers, the persons who are packaging that, should be aware that if it is still wet, then it will soil, it will smudge, and it will take away from the quality of the work that is being assessed. So that is critical for the CSEC Visual Arts. All right, moving to Cape Art and Design, Unit 1. Again, the instructions, which I believe the papers have been released, should be followed very carefully. Explanatory statements are needed for 4 concepts: the artist, the media or the material, the theme, and the techniques. And there should be an explanation of how that influenced the work. The preliminary annotated sketches and the simulations where required should also be prepared and of course taken to the examination. If it's Unit 1, dimensional art, where printmaking is used, we want to emphasize that there must be 3 editions of the work. And if you are doing using natural clay for the art that you are preparing, there must be the opportunity for that art to be fired. Because if it's not fired, it should not be submitted and it cannot be graded. Then it's not a completed work, and that will obviously reduce your ability to gain the marks that are required. All right, next slide. For the Unit 2, again, we continue to emphasize reading the instructions carefully, preparing the explanatory statements on the same 4 concepts referred to before: the artist, the media material, the themes, and the techniques. Ensure that there is access for natural clay to be fired. So there must be somewhere that work prepared could go to get fired so that it's allowed to rest before it is packaged and sent to us to be assessed. Tempers such as grog, sawdust, grass, rice, etc. could be added to the clay while it is in the plastic stage. That allows you to use a lower temperature when doing the firing. If we're looking at Unit 2, visual communication, the pieces done by hand must be printed. We are not accepting any flash drives, so flash drives are not to be submitted for this Unit 2. No original photos should be submitted. They can only be used as inspiration because that is somebody else's work. We want you, the candidate, to prepare the work yourself, right? However, after the examination, we advise again that photos of your work be taken and submitted with all of your pieces. The candidate number should be etched for if it's pottery, etc., ceramic, etched into the piece or securely attached to every art piece. And that is critical. If for some reason it detaches and you only have it one place, then that poses some challenges for us to find the piece and make sure everything is fine. So we're asking, and that is an instruction that is on the work and it's given to the invigilators and to the teachers as well, to ensure that the candidate number is attached to every piece of work that is submitted. And so you just wanted to give those reminders as we prepare for the examination so that we can maximize the possibility of you getting, the highest score possible. Let's ensure that we follow those instructions that are written on the paper. I believe, and we believe that what has been happening, we run straight to the question, try to do the work, but forget the fine details that says, well, you have to submit this, you must do this in this way. And also for drying time, do not compromise the drying time. 2 weeks is required for those ceramic type work. And so that time must be given to the work to dry before it is packaged for shipping. Thank you very much and all the best in your examinations. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Dr. Young. At this time, I will invite our Manager for Examination, Administration, and Security, Mrs. Karine Holder, to do her presentation. She will be speaking about matters relating to regulations and penalties for the May-June 2025 examinations and beyond. Karine?
Good evening to everyone. And I join with Mr. Payne and to remind students here this evening that you all have the potential to succeed. Preparing for your examinations, we advise that you read your examination timetable carefully, including the guidance notes. You must ensure that you have the date and time for each examination to be awarded a final grade. You must ensure that all components are completed. Missing any of the examination components will result in receiving ungraded. So we advise that you also check your registration details to avoid any issues accessing your results online, and certificates which will be printed with incorrect information. So report any errors to your local registrar and pay attention to the notes included at the end of the timetable. In preparation for your exams, we advise that you refer to your subject syllabus when preparing for your examinations. Each syllabus outlines the format for each examination paper. Create a study schedule. Why create a study schedule? This allows you to break down your subjects into manageable chunks and allocate times for each subject. Please ensure to get enough rest. especially the night before an examination. A well-rested mind performs better. And number 5, eat healthy. How can parents help in preparation for examinations? Number 1, allow your children to express their feelings, any concerns about the examination in a safe space, and be sure to offer reassurance. I'm quite sure that it will go a long way. We encourage you to be patient, to be positive, and to be very understanding. As Ronnie alluded to this earlier, exam time can be very stressful for our children, and we do not want to add any additional pressure leading up to the exams. Also help the students with planning. And parents, we encourage you to assist your children in creating a realistic study schedule, one that they can manage. Provide a conducive study environment as well. By doing so, we ask that you create a distraction-free space where your child can study. For example, a very quiet room, a quiet area. Encourage them to have a balanced meal and adequate rest. And set realistic expectations. Encourage your child to do their best without setting unrealistic expectations. Candidates, before the exam, we urge you to arrive at the exam center at least 30 minutes before the exam starts. Candidates who arrive after the first 30 minutes will not be admitted into the examination and will be marked as absent. Also, before the exam, you should bring proof of identity. Private candidates must produce proof of ID. You must also provide your own stationery, pens, pencils, rulers, erasers, and where permitted for the specific examination, calculators, dictionaries, and geometry sets. Mobile telephones and other electronic devices and other unauthorized material and equipment must not be brought into the examination room. We urge that you follow the instructions given by the supervisors and the invigilators. Going back to pencils for the multiple choice questions, you are to use a 3B pencil. Pens are light pencils, for example, the HB pencil, H1, or other light pencils must not be used. During the examinations, we ask that you follow the instructions given by supervisors and the invigilators. Ensure to read and follow the instructions carefully on the question paper. Also, write your registration information in the spaces requested. This includes on the front cover of your answer booklet, and you also must sign the answer sheet provided for the multiple choice examinations. And you must also write your name in the designated area on the multiple choice booklet. Please manage your time well, review your answers, stay calm, and stay focused. The examination paper will state how much time is allotted for that particular paper. So please be sure to keep an eye on the clock and ensure that you answer all questions. Review your questions, check for mistakes or any incomplete responses. That is, if you have enough time at the end of the exam. Number 7, you are not allowed to leave the examination room during the first 30 minutes of an examination unless there are exceptional circumstances. In no way, shape, or form are you to communicate with candidates in the examination room. If you need any assistance at any time, please raise your hand and signal to the invigilator or supervisor that you need assistance. Do not leave the examination room without the authorization of the invigilating staff. Any candidate given permission to leave the examination room must be accompanied by a supervisor or the invigilator. Do not give assistance to or seek any assistance from any candidate in the examination room. As I said before, raise your hand and you will signal to the invigilator or to the supervisor that you need assistance. Going back to the multiple choice answer sheet again, please do not use any liquid paper on the multiple choice answer sheets. This is very important. As far as possible, stick to the 3B pencil. After the exam, you must be allowed, I'll read that again. You may be allowed to discontinue work and leave the examination room at any time after the first 30 minutes. Only if you surrender your question paper and answer booklet. In other words, you cannot leave the examination room with your question paper and your answer booklet after the first 30 minutes. Do not remove any examination materials such as the mathematical tables issued, used or unused answer booklets, multiple choice question booklets from the exam room. Do not leave the examination room. This one is very important without completed candidate receipt. I'll repeat number 3. Do not leave the examination room without your completed candidate's receipt. Retain your candidate receipt. Keep it in a safe place until after results are released. And this is to ensure that if you need to query your result, you have your candidate's receipt as evidence that you sat that particular component. And lastly, do not leave the examination room unless instructed by the invigilating staff to do so. Student Central. Student Central is your one-stop shop for student-related information, and this is where you will find demo e-tests. It does not provide answers or calculate a score. Rather, it is a tool for you to familiarize yourself with the online platform for electronic assessments. The CXC store is where you can access past papers and our syllabuses. Oxford University Press is where you can access our study guides. Timetables, these are the general timetables. Individual candidate timetables can be accessed via the student portal or your local registrar's office. Guidelines for Candidates Manual. It contains all examination-related information, which is of importance to all candidates. In our LR directory, you can find contact details for each local registrar across the region. On Student Central as well, we have syllabuses there. And the student portal is also on Student Central. Here you can access your examination timetable as well as preliminary results when grades are released. So pay close attention to our website. And CXC regulations and graduated scale of penalties. At this time, I will invite my colleague, the lovely Sheldon, and Miss Angela Law to give you a brief overview on our revised regulations. I admonish you to periodically check our website and follow us on social media for further updates, deadline dates, release of results dates, the process for querying results or reviewing results, and merit lists. Over to you, Sheldon, and thank you very much.
Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, students. Good evening, if there are any parents on the call. Thank you for joining us, and we do wish you the very best as you prepare for your examinations upcoming within the next few weeks. As we speak about the graduated scale of penalties relating to misconduct and penalties of the examination, CXC has recently revised their regulations governing examinations. And therefore, we want to draw your attention to some important information relating to the misconduct and penalties. Our team would have shared the link, and you would find it on Student Central, but there's also a specific link for misconduct and penalties. Now, CXC reserves the right to revoke any certificate, any diploma, or associate degree if at any time we discover or have proved that there was an irregularity, misconduct, or dishonesty in the event or circumstances leading up to the award of any certification that we will issue. Tonight, I want to share with you about concerning three positions, three types of penalties, three types of major penalties that you can face. There's a penalty of cancellation, where a candidate's conduct is determined to be in breach, and therefore the grades for that specific examination during that name session is removed. You would not be able to get that grade, and therefore that's considered a cancellation. Then there is a disqualification, and that is where all of the grades for the exam period taken during that period of time, you are disqualified from. And lastly, there is a concept of debarment, where CXC takes the decision to remove you from taking any of its examination for a period of about 2 years. So even as we look into the misconduct and the penalties, there are various aspects that we would focus on that can be considered misconduct. There's possession with defiance, there's possession and use, there's copying and collusion, there's unruly conduct, removal of confidential material, obtaining exam papers ahead of the time, copying items from and taking them from the room. There's issues relating to plagiarism, persistent copying, persistent unruly behavior, taking unauthorized materials. And even as I say that, the material that's allowed, that you will know the materials that are allowed, your timetable is allowed in the examination room, and it must not be defaced. And then for some of our examinations, and those are known, you are allowed to take specific authorized materials into the room, but those specific exams are known. Wittingly obtaining exam material beforehand, tampering with scripts, conspiring to tamper, and impersonation, all of those are considered to be aspects of misconduct. And for each of them, there is an associated penalty, from cancellation to disqualification and possibly to debarment. I want to draw your attention now to one of the areas that's most critical that we want you to pay rapid attention to, and that is the penalty, the graduated scale. And why we call it graduated is that because there are several areas, like for instance, the cell phone, there are 6 categories relating to the cell phone specifically, and each category, the penalty changes, increases, or raises based on how you want to put it. So having a cell phone in your bag during the conduct of an examination, there is a graduated scale for that. So once the phone is in the bag without disturbance, there's no penalty. And then if the phone causes disturbance, candidates will receive a first warning by supervisors or invigilators. You are asked to obey your instructions given. If they ask you to turn your phone off, put your phone away, do whatever, you're entitled to respond in a positive manner. If the phone is in the bag causing repeated disturbance, that's grounds for cancellation. If the phone is in the bag with evidence of use during the conduct of the examination, that's grounds for disqualification. Repeated possession of the cell phone in the bag. So you may have had it in the first exam, you have it in the second exam, that's grounds for disqualification. And cell phone in a bag with defiance, that's also grounds for disqualification. So we need to take note of the graduated scale of penalty for candidates having a cell phone in your bag during the conduct of an examination. I also want to draw your attention to the graduated scale of penalties for candidates having any unauthorized device on their person. And this is not only a cell phone, but their smartwatches, the glasses with the electronic devices, any electronic device with programmable memory, interconnectivity, data storage, video or audio features, anything at all that allows you to connect with the outside world, you must not have that device on your person during the conduct of an examination. So your first penalty will be cancellation, and that would probably be the soft one. And then when we speak of repeated possession with any of these devices found on your person, that's grounds for disqualification. Possession and use of a calculator when not permitted. Your timetable does show, and the master timetable and the question paper will tell you whether you are permitted to use a calculator. And for the most part, there are non-programmable calculators. If there's any other than that, your instructions will clearly tell you. That's cancellation of marks for that paper, repeated possession and use of a calculator, cancellation of the results in all of the subjects where a calculator is used, and possession and use of the calculator with defiance, cancellation of results in the subject. This is just a brief, and I encourage you children, I encourage your parents and your teachers to be well informed of the penalties, the misconduct, and the graduated scale. It is found on our website on Student Central. It is also there. You will find it on the link that speaks to penalties and misconduct. I wish you well in your exams. You can do it. You can do it. Tell yourself you can do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Sheldine, and for leaving on such a positive note with us. I'm sure the students are appreciative. Just before we go into our question and answer section, and I would like to just remind everyone that the questions are supposed to be dropped into our Q&A section on the platform. I see someone has a hand raised, so you can just drop your question in the Q&A. Some general housekeeping. This town hall session will be shared on our YouTube and our website, so you may be able to view it after the session has ended today. Links for the various platforms have been dropped into the chat. You will find them there. This is for the Student Central, the CXC store, the regulations, and for the master timetable list. Those links are in our chat, so you can check there for it. So at this time, I am going to go over to our Q&A and share our very first question. First up, who does CXC consult to make changes in what they deliver? And what are the reasons behind making syllabus into a modular form and classify the forms as accelerated, etc.? Surely the children in the various schools will interpret that as we are being streamed and I am in the lowest stream. What does that do for their self-esteem? So this is a two-part question. Who does CXC consult to make changes in what they deliver? And what are the reasons behind making the syllabus into a modular form? Dr. Young, Dr. Payne? Mr. Payne?
I will attempt to give a response on that because we recently discussed this at the media conference. CXC recognizes the need for candidates to have an opportunity to be certified in a longer, I should say, take a little more time to be certified. Now, I hear the term being used, classify the students. I don't think that is what was intended by the statement made. We recognize some students move more quickly, and hence the term advanced students was used. We know while the CSEC syllabus is spec'd for 2 years on average, some candidates do it in 1 year. Some do it in 3rd form, some subjects, some do in 4th form. Those candidates would be considered ahead of the regular rate at which CSEC or average rate at which CSEC may be spec'd. Hence, you consider them advanced students. Not that you're classifying the subject taken in a particular way as advanced, but the student is advancing more quickly than the average class. The regular 2-year period, most candidates attempt CSEC. Some do well, some don't do as well. And then you think of those who need additional time and may attempt one part of the subject syllabus as a module and continue to build on that foundation with the other modules. The attempt was never to classify or create disparity in the classroom, but to recognize if students learn at different rates, there's no reason why we can't create the capacity or the facility for them to be certified at different rates. Dr. Young, are you still there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. I think you have correctly answered and adequately responded to that question. It is not about streaming at all. In fact, if we do look back, the CAPE, for example, examinations have been split into two units from the get-go, the beginning, so that instead of taking all the exams at the end of 2 years, it was split into 1 unit and then 2 units. So there's the same concept that has just been expanded to give the modular approach for the CSEC examinations, especially. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for that, gentlemen. Next question up. Are we going to see a radical change in the way we test anytime soon? It continues to be memorizing facts and learning algorithms. Students are not being challenged to be creative, and worse, there continues to be a time limit for each and every test. What happens to the slow, deep learner? And yet with it, what happens with the slow, deep learner? Yet with the SBAs, we are being encouraged to have the children get enough chances to get a total score. What is it that we're really testing? I think the first part of that is, when are we going to see a radical change in the way, we test anytime soon?
Thanks for the question. I would just take that up right now. I really would want us to remain focused as to the May-June sitting and make sure everyone is appropriately prepared for this examination cycle. But let me just pause it and share with everyone that I don't necessarily understand what is meant by a radical shift, because there are different purposes of our examinations. We have the multiple choice, we have the extended essay, constructed response questions, the paper twos, and then we have the SBA, which is both formative and summative in nature. And so the underlying principles for the SBA is such that it should happen over a period of time and allow the student to engage with material and in so doing, collaborating with others, develop certain skills, research skills, collaborative skills, and also get the opportunity to learn and apply content to specific scenarios and solving specific problems. So there are different purposes in the holistic approach that CXC takes in assessing candidate performance. So there will be some level of knowledge, but we have shared, even with our standards and guidelines for the use of AI in assessment, that you are going to see a shift, because now recall is not like books, and information is not readily available now. So we don't need to test whether you can define, etc., just like that, but rather to apply. And you're going to see that happening some more. But we also have to prepare the system to be able to teach like that, and not just teach to a test, but teach for life, which requires us to analyze and also apply that information to specific situations, scenarios, so that to solve problems in our society. So I think that's what I will share. And yes, we are looking and devising new ways and means of appropriately assessing, and it must be practical, right? You don't want to make a test extremely difficult and it doesn't serve the purpose that you want it to serve. So we also have to balance what we expect with what the employers would require, what is required for entry level in the job, etc. So there's a lot to consider, but yes, we are constantly improving what we do. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Young. So we have a few questions from our YouTube platform. First up, who do you consult when you have a subject clash, 2 or more subjects?
Subject clashes are expected to be managed by your local registrar, and they are the ones, they are aware, and the supervisors on the ground are also aware to be able to handle and manage any clashes. So during a clash, candidates are required to be quarantined in preparation for the next subject. They're given their 15 minutes break in between each subject before they proceed. But your first priority, if you're a private candidate, local registrars are required to assist with the management of clashes.
And as an addendum to that, if you're in school, you would bring it to the attention of the requisite examination or administration coordinator that's in school, so that the relevant arrangements can be made. Next question up. Are calculators allowed in physics and chemistry papers, specifically paper 1, 2, and 3, or only for papers 2 and 3 alone?
Generally, the examination timetable, the question paper, it usually tells you the subjects that calculators are permitted in, but just let me take a brief look. The question was physics?
Yes, physics and chemistry.
From what I am seeing, physics and chemistry calculators, non-programmable scientific calculators may be used.
Okay, thank you for that.
Further information is always found on your question paper on the morning of the examination.
Thank you. I would like to know if we may use pencils to show working for the maths paper 2.
I think you can use pencils to show working for the maths paper 2.
Thank you. Is a bottle of water allowed in the Spanish oral exams?
Is the exam that long that you need water? We advise that you take your water before you go into your examination room. I don't imagine that the exam would be that long that you would need water within that space of time. Take your water before, where possible.
Thank you, Shirley. If a student is ill during the exam and they report it, what will happen?
Well, there is a supervisor within every examination room. They're supposed to manage any irregularity that would be considered an irregularity. If the candidate takes ill, they are supposed to manage that, record the information. The candidate may be in a position to continue exam afterwards, but in every case, they must be quarantined, they must be monitored, they must be managed, and the question papers will be removed from the candidate and held in the possession of the supervisor until the candidate, if the candidate is able to return after that, then they're allowed to continue the exam. If they're not able to continue after the illness, well, then the irregularity report will also state that. But either way, an irregularity report must be filled out and shared with CXC.
Thank you for that. Next up, year after year, test papers contain serious errors. Teachers are not allowed to see the paper often till a week after the exam. How can you advise students when they are writing an exam to deal with an error in the paper that they may suspect? Do they leave out the rest of the question if there are several parts? How does CXC mark the question that has part of it containing a serious error?
Right.
Raquel?
I wouldn't even classify, thanks, that's a very good question. I wouldn't even classify error to be serious, or all errors for us are serious.
Yes.
And we take them very seriously. What we would say to you is you attempt the question, right? In most cases, there are things that are transferable. However, if it is such that it affects your ability to respond to the question, there are options available to us at CXC that we discuss with the technical advisory committee that we consider. So there are in some instances where we may remove the question altogether and not use it in grading. We may decide to reallocate the profiles, the marks. We can also credit the marks to the candidates depending on the number, and when we do our statistical analysis as to whether we are giving an unfair advantage to too many. But what we do is always in the best interest of the candidates and to be fair. And when we are done, we still want to make sure that we certify the skills appropriately. So we can't just give away marks and give away this and give away that. And we do not want to penalize the candidates for something that it's not their fault, right? We take it very seriously. We really cringe when there is a challenge and an error, and we always take the best interests of the candidates at heart in the approach that is taken. So all we will say to you is that if you do see it, report it, you share it, it is taken into consideration during marking. We do have teachers who mark. Teachers are the ones who generally mark. They understand during standardization what generally takes place to make allocations for those situations if they come up. And that's why we have standardization. That's why we have that type of process to ensure that all of these things are treated with. So I would say to you, one, we do not like errors, and it's not something we take lightly. So rest assured that CXC does everything in the best interest of the candidates when treating with these matters, right? And so just attempt the questions, continue to press on, and ensure that you report any, even if you're not sure. It could be you don't know, you don't remember the content, etc. But if you believe that there is an error, have it reported so that we can investigate and we can treat with it accordingly.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Young. When doing SBAs for CAPE, if a student has to go outside the syllabus to do his analysis, is this something that they will be penalized for?
Right, I'm trying to pull together what you're actually saying. If you go outside the scope of the syllabus to do the analysis, you can't get credit for that because we are not certifying those skills. Once you meet the other requirements, that's why we share our criteria, our marking criteria for SBAs. They're in the syllabuses. Follow that, right? So even if, yes, you do something that is extra, we're not giving you extra points or bonus for that. If it meets the criteria otherwise, then you'll be credited for that. But if it's outside the scope of the syllabus, it's not on the mark scheme, it's not what we're looking for, it does not add anything in your favor, right? So work with the mark schemes and you'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Okay, Miss Paula Ann Moore, we've made a note of your query, so we will handle that separately as it doesn't specifically deal with the examinations and preparations that we're discussing here. So we will deal with that on a separate forum. The next question is for my visual arts exam. So Dr. Young, you're up again. It would not count as plagiarism if I bring my references printed out on the day of the exam, and I would be able to use my references to make my final art in painting and mixed media. I am not making the exact same thing as my reference, but I am using some parts of it. Is it okay to do this?
Yeah, that is okay for the, I believe, the referencing of what you're using. But if it's painting and mixed media, what you referred to in order to do it, that should be fine. That is not counted as plagiarism once you indicate where you got that from and that it is not your work that you're bringing here. So that is fine. And that is allowed, sorry. Correct.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Ria, I'm going to ask you if you could just clarify your question for me. The question that he or she has posed is, what are the SBA scores for the subjects agricultural science, integrated science, biology, human and social biology, English A, English B, mathematics, and social studies? So what are the SBA scores? If you could clarify that for us, please. Next question up is, students continually say that the multiple choice items are largely the same as previous years, so they are not being challenged enough. How often are new items created for examinations?
How do I answer that question? This is a very interesting statement. Every year we are doing item writing workshops, having persons write for us. We have persons who are trained and persons who write for us at CXC. The process of getting items onto examination takes some time because there's a process that it goes through, and it's not like you could just get an item today and put it on a test. That is wrong. That will have negative consequences. So we follow the processes to make sure that it is sound. It is unfortunate that multiple choice questions, because of the amount of rigor that must go into it to prepare it and the length of time it takes for it to be refined and to get to a place to get on an examination paper, that is the reason why we have protected it. But persons who, if they really realize what they're doing, would realize that we are undermining, the values of our society by literally stealing these multiple choice questions and putting them in the public. We also have certain standards for the quality of the items that we put on the test. So we can't just pick up items and just drop them on a test just like that. So you will see, and since I believe 2020, there was a big explosion because of what was going on. And but since then we have been recovering, and it takes time building back an item bank and so forth from all of that. It takes time, but certainly we are putting in the effort. And we hope that, and I'll make a plea here, if you see something, say something, discourage persons from doing that, from taking the items. It does not help our society if persons are cheating their way out, right? But we can only do the best that we can with what we have and the resources that we have. And we are doing that yearly for different subjects and at different times. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is regarding the grade review process and appeal process. Please advise what these processes are. What are the situations within which appeals to grades can occur? And for the grade review process, please advise what these, okay, so it's a repeat of the question. Okay, so the question is, grade review process and appeal, please advise what these processes are and what are the situations within which appeals to grades can occur. Team? Hello?
Michelle, can you read the question again, please? Angela
Sure.
Kirina, Angela Lewis's.
Okay, here we go. The question relates to the grade review process and appeal process. Please advise what these processes are. What are the situations within which an appeal to grades can occur?
Michelle, I'll take the question. Candidates can submit a request for a review of the grade awarded during the time period allowed after, I think, 4 weeks after we release results. We encourage reviews, to be submitted to the local registrar's office, or it can be done at the school, and it is $60 Barbados per subject for the grade review. If you're not satisfied with your grade, you can feel free to request a review, and the script is remarked by the chief examiner. And we do not downgrade, just to add that bit.
Okay, and
if candidates are reported absent or ungraded, they can also submit a query via the LR's office or the center, and we will investigate and respond accordingly.
And the second part of the question is, what are the situations within which an appeal to grades can occur?
Candidates can appeal, as I said before, if they were awarded, for example, a grade 3, and they think that they should have been awarded a 1 or a 2, they can submit the request for a grade review.
Okay.
I will also add, Michelle, if they're not satisfied with a profile, they can also request a review.
Okay, and all of that is within the time period as you indicated earlier.
Yes,
okay.
We will publish the deadline to appeal a grade or to submit a query on the website once we issue the results for the examination session.
Great, thank you so much. Next question, in the event of a clash that occurs in the afternoon, will the student be required to stay back later that afternoon, or will one exam be facilitated earlier in the day?
Examinations are facilitated at the appointed time, and so therefore the clashes if the exam is in the evening or exams begin at 1 p.m. And yes, they will be required to sit the exam at that point in time. The invigilator or supervisor can agree with them as to which paper, that they will be doing first, but either way, both of them must be done at that time. We cannot run the risk of having a paper that's due in the afternoon, written in the morning, because it means then that that paper will be exposed. That's a breach of the paper, and other persons would not have that paper as yet. So we really cannot accommodate that sort of thing. No.
Thank you for that. We have some questions coming over from our YouTube platform. For for mathematics, if you get between 18 and 20 for SBA and a good paper 1 mark, can you be awarded a grade 3?
Could you just repeat that question?
For mathematics, if you get between 18 to 20 for SBA and a good paper 1 mark, can you be awarded a grade 3?
Sorry, I'm unable to tell you if that, not because I don't want to, or not because I know. It's because of how the grading system works, and we grade based on profiles as well. It has to do with how your scores are distributed on profiles in totality. I also have to give the caveat here that the score that you enter in with the SBA could either go up or go down. So there's a possibility that even if you think you have 18 out of 20, it could be less than that. So we wouldn't want to give you a false hope regarding that. All I would say is go out there, do your best, because the profile distribution is critical toward your overall grade. And I can't tell you out of the 18 out of 20, or how when you say a good score on your paper 1, you can do well on certain profiles and very poorly on another, and it could have a negative impact on your overall grade. So that's the best response I can give to you. All we say is keep calm, be prepared, go out there, give every question your best shot, and we hope for the best.
Thank you, Dr. Young. For paper 1, are we required to carry laptops?
Some candidates and centers and territories may enter into arrangements and agreements with the candidates to bring their own devices if there are insufficient devices at the school to do the paper 1 examinations. The majority of our paper 1s, practically all of our paper 1s, are examinable online, and therefore, yes, that is an option that they can take.
Thank you very much for that. The next 2 questions have to do with percentages. What percentage give you a grade 2 in the sciences and information technology? And what percentage give you a grade 1 in chemistry?
All right. So I'll take this opportunity to respond to all queries now regarding grade boundaries. I know that there is a perception that CXCs, we are what you call secretive, etc. regarding that. It's not that. It is how we grade. It would be confusing depending on the type of, as I said earlier, your profile grade distribution is critical, right? And because we are criterion referenced and we seek to ensure that our criteria and our standard is the same every year, telling you a number like 70, 80, 90, 50, maybe even 35, I'm just saying, would mean nothing really when we weight those scores and when we split them according to the profiles accordingly. So again, as I emphasize, the key thing is really to just do well, because we're looking to see how it is that you perform on each of these profiles. And based on how these profiles, how your performance on the profiles are distributed, it determines the quality of the grade that you get. Because for certain grades, certain grade levels, you can't have a certain grade on the profile. For example, if you get a D on one of the profiles, even though you do great. So let's say arbitrarily this for a normal, you're in classroom, 80% is let's say, generally an A, right? You can get 80% overall, but having a low grade D on the profile, you can't get a grade 1, right? Because grade 1, a D is not an acceptable grade within the grade 1 band. So I'm saying it is all about ensuring you do well on all profiles in order to maximize the possibility of you getting the best grade, right? We do not disclose this. It is, as I said, I'm trying to break it down into simplest terms so that we can understand. Now, if you don't do well on one area, it will affect the overall. So even if the other areas you do very, very well. So it's about the holistic look at things. Don't look at a percentage. Ensure you work well on the profiles. That's the best I can share with you.
Thank you, Dr. Yao. How do I access my CXC provided email? I'm trying to sign in using the email provided, but I do not know where to sign into. So this person wants to know, how do they access their CXC provided email?
Generally, when a candidate registers, there are a host of emails. If the candidate does not have one, that can be allowed or forwarded to the candidate. It's not necessarily an email for you to use during the exam, but the system requires an email address in that area, and it's just for validation purposes. So there's no need really for you to try to log into that email, that address as provided.
Thank you for that. Is there any advice to give students who get panic attacks when facing an exam? Can they be given particular concessions by the examiners, like extra time, should they undergo that attack?
Well, since I'm here, let me just attempt a response to that one. Generally, if candidates have, let's say, a condition, let me call it a condition, and they know that potentially because of stress or anxiety that this thing could be an issue during the exam, that is something that they would need to share with us ahead of time. We have something called special assessment arrangements, and you would need to get a medical certificate from your general practitioner or a specialist, doctor, whoever, and send that information to us ahead of time, suggesting that the candidate will be required to, will need extra time or will need some specific special arrangement, and those things then are afforded for the candidate during the exam. It is not something that's done on the morning of the exam preferably, but if something happens suddenly and there is the requisite documentation to prove, well, then that can be accommodated. But generally people know what issues face them during stress or high level seasons, and we recommend that you send that information to us well ahead of time so that the necessary arrangements can be made.
Thank you, Sheldon. Next question. How long does it take for us to get our grades after we sit the examinations?
My colleague, Miss Holder, will take that one.
Hi again, Michelle.
Hi.
We advise candidates to stay tuned in to our social media websites, where we will publish the official release date for results. Or they can contact the local registrar's office.
Thank you. We do send out notices to give to let persons be aware approximately when they will be out. So it's a matter of just periodically checking in on the website and social media, as she says. Next question up has to do with the EDPM paper 2. Are candidates allowed to carry in the exam a paper stand or holder to efficiently assist with the 10-minute copy speed test? Are they considered an authorized item?
I am not aware of any such authorized item. Dr. Young, I'm not so sure if you can assist me here, but I have not seen or heard of any additional authorized items that are required for the EDPM examination.
Sorry, I am not aware of it, that is the case, but I think it is something that we should revert on. I do not have that has been authorized though.
Okay, thank you. Are we allowed to ask invigilators if we suspect there is a mistake in a certain part of the question? I think Dr. Young, you would have addressed this earlier.
Yes, they should not ask them to clarify, but if you suspect that there's an error, then you report it to them. They cannot give any advice. They cannot answer a question for you. They will just take note of if anything that you suspect is a challenge and report it to us.
Thank you for that. Next question up from YouTube has to do with an ID. If my school ID is finished, I'm going to assume expired by the time of my exams, can I use my passport? That's the question.
If your ID has expired, can you use your passport to write the examination?
Mm-hmm.
This is a private candidate for identification purposes?
It would seem so.
Yes, private candidate must have a picture identification on them to confirm who they are when they go to write the examination, and a passport, once it has a picture ID, is allowable.
Thank you. Are all exams going to be electronic this year?
This year being June 2025?
Mm-hmm.
No, all of our paper ones are offered electronically. Some of them are still written by paper, but they're all available electronically, the paper ones. Then there are specific structured papers, some paper tools and 3 tools that are offered electronically. And those would be the Information Technology Paper 3-2, Theater Arts Paper 3-2, EDPM Paper 2, EDPM Paper 3-2, Digital Media, Animation and Game Design, and then there's some hybrid options for the paper 3-2s.
Thank you for that. Can a student use techniques from higher math, example further math, when solving Unit 1 or Unit 2 pure math?
That would be Dr. Young.
Me again. Let me first advise that the syllabus does indicate which principles are being assessed, right? Which methods. We do, however, make provisions during standardization and marking for unique solutions, as you have just indicated, and once it does meet the requirements, it is credited. So we do give considerations to that, but my advice, however, because if you do make an error using that, it is more difficult to pick up and to allocate specific marks. Yeah, but certainly we do give consideration to novel solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Young. The next 2 questions have to do with word limits. There is a word limit for Unit 2 Applied Math of 2,000 words, yet with the new syllabus, students are expected to basically do 3 projects in one, since each module can be a whole different idea. Brilliant ideas now written up by my students are really hard pressed to meet the word limit. Any advice on how we can get parts of the write-up placed in the appendix, for example?
Sorry, I can't advise on that. The aim that the subject panel had determined when working this through is that we want to be focused, succinct, and not allow for too much variation. Very focused in providing the solutions, etc., the information, and so that's the limit that we ask everybody that they've set, and we have set as the standard for persons to utilize in the submission. Writing too much work like that, we also have to give consideration to the marking part of everything. And so we do want to train persons to be able to write concisely, yeah, and be focused in the information that you are providing in the report. So there's no other way I could put it. Stick within the word limit. That is what we are asking for. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we are going to be taking a few more questions, but we do ask before we close that if you have any other questions after this, we're kindly asking that you send them via email to cxcezo@cxc.org. You can send your emails, your questions, or any further questions through to that email, and we will respond as quickly as we can to them. The next question up says, could you advise whether there is an official, word limit or recommended word range for responses in section B of the CSEC English A paper 2, particularly for transactional pieces such as letters?
I'm unable to give that straight
Same, yeah.
head regarding that. I do believe the instructions in the question paper are clear as to what is required. The space provided also gives a guidance as to how far and how much you should write. That's the best I can say at this point regarding that.
Okay, so this question says, when is it advisable that an entire school can query exam results in a particular subject area? Right now, some schools ask the individual students to query, while some schools decide the whole school query of all the students' grade in a subject area. Does CXC realize that this is happening and it is extremely costly when the individual students have to do queries?
Alicia, I'll take this question. The centers, if they are querying the results for an entire center, they should submit a letter to the local registrar's office, and the local registrar will in turn forward that to CXC, and we will investigate and provide a response. However, we still recommend that each review is submitted via the ORS at the center or at the ministry level.
Thank you. And our final question, I created my mathematics SBA, but I'm unsure if my teacher sent it in. So if I sit the CXC, will I be graded? Or do the teachers still have an opportunity to submit the SBA, all SBAs?
Sorry, Michelle, repeat the question, please.
I created my mathematics SBA, but I am unsure if my teacher sent it in. So if I sit the CXC, will I be graded, or do the teachers still have an opportunity to submit the SBA?
What I will recommend, if it is a candidate who is querying our parent, is that you confirm with the school that the SBA has been submitted and completed. Sorry, let me switch that around. Completed first and then submitted to the teacher for the respective subject.
Okay. All right. The last question that we're going to field for this evening, an explanation of the term profile grade distribution. This would be in response, I think, Dr. Young, to one of the previous responses from you.
Right. Simply put, on your certificate, well, in the syllabus, firstly, if we check the syllabus at the front of the syllabus, it indicates which areas we are assessing, or what are the skills that we are assessing. So, for example, in chemistry, I will use as an example, knowledge and comprehension is one profile, use of knowledge is a second profile, and experimental skills is a third profile. So when you get your certificate, it will say whether you got an A in use of knowledge, an A in knowledge and comprehension, and an A in experimental skills. So you get an all A profile distribution, grade distribution. You can get AAC, ABA, ADB, all of those. So that is what I was speaking about when I say profile grade distribution, and every subject has different profile names that are assessed. Some are the same. So the sciences generally, you would see that they are the same. But other subjects have different profiles, and so that is outlined in the syllabus and will be seen on the certificate when and on the results slip too, when results are released.
Thank you very much. We do have some other questions that relate specifically to SBA. If I did my integrated science SBA and I was going to do the practical for it, but my teacher said only myself and someone else was the best, and only one of us can go and do it, but I let the other person do it and not me. Did I pass or not?
Sorry, I'm unable to respond to that because I am not understanding.
Fair, yes.
I don't understand as well, Dr. Young. Yeah.
I would ask that person, I hope I'm pronouncing this properly, Sinara Jagdeo, if you could put that question, email that question to us so that we can look it over, we can provide a response. The email address for any other questions, cxcezo@cxc.org. You can send any other queries to that email and we will try to respond to you as quickly as we can. The other question that had to do with SBA, why will the candidate receive ungraded if the SBA is not submitted?
Hi, as I said earlier, all components for each subject must be completed in order to be awarded a final grade. So non-submission of the SBA will be reported as ungraded.
Okay, thank you. The other question relating to SBAs, is there a process where when an SBA has not received by CXC that it is flagged and verified before the grade is assigned? There have been too many cases where entire classes receive ungraded results due to some tech or other issues between uploading of the SBAs by the teachers and the receipt or lack of receipt of said SBAs by CXC. This check can help minimize the trauma to students when results come out and ungraded results are provided. So is there a process? Do we have a process where when SBAs are not received by CXC that it's flagged?
Yes, Michelle, there is a process. I will add that CXC has an absolute deadline and the local registrars will also have a deadline for submission of SBA scores and samples. If persons are having challenges uploading scores and samples, they should contact the local registrar's office or CXC, and we will try to assist and resolve all queries prior to the release of results.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you very much to all our participants. At this time, I am going to ask that you drop your questions via email. The email address has been placed in the chat. That email address again is cxcezo@cxc.org. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much, colleagues. At this time, I'm going to just indicate that the email address has been dropped in the chat for your questions to be sent via that platform for us to provide a response. That email address again is cxcezo@cxc.org. At this time, I'm going to close out. I'm going to invite Dr. James Young, our Acting Senior Manager, to give our closing remarks. Dr. Young.
Yes, good evening, one and all, once again. On behalf of the registrar, the directors, the staff of the Caribbean Examination Council, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all of you, the students, teachers, parents, well-wishers who attended today's webinar. Your active participation, the questions, the engagement has really made this event a meaningful one. We appreciate your time and the effort that you invested in being here, and hope that with the conversation that we had today, that it would result in your betterment and better preparation for the examination, and realize that we're dealing with human beings at the end of the other computer, and that we do look out for the best interests of the people of our region. And we at CXC take this human resource development quite seriously. To the technical team, all of you, all of the presenters, thank you so very much. And we want to wish everyone all the best in the exams. Have a blessed and wonderful night, and hope to, be rejoicing with every one of you when the time for results comes. Thank you, and good night from all of us.
For those attendees, we are kindly asking you to complete our survey. The link has also been dropped in the chat. There's a QR code on the screen. If you could please provide us with some feedback so that we can have this going forward. Please complete the survey before you exit. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening.
Life is all about choices. Your choice of career is one of the most important decisions imaginable. That's why the Caribbean Examinations Council, CXC, offers a wide range of certifications and support resources to help you land your dream job. Starting with the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, CPEA, the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, CCSLC, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, CVQ, the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC, the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE, and our CXC Associate Degree Program, CXC-AD. We cater to learners from the primary to post-secondary levels, including on-demand, innovative certifications for all learners and educators. The choice is yours. Start your career journey with CXC. Visit our website cxc.org to learn more about our various qualifications.
CXC is transforming for greater regional impact through its e-strategy framework. The components of the framework include e-product development. E-product development, which capitalizes on 21st century technology to digitize and digitalize qualifications, syllabuses, standards, and assessment, provides access to educational qualifications in a dynamic environment. EQ-Bank. An EQ-Bank is being developed to expand the CXC's e-authoring capabilities, including the design and execution of technologically enhanced items. E-assessment development. In this process, assessments are prepared, reviewed, and finalized through the use of an electronic platform. E-registration. E-registration is completed through the Online Registration System, ORS. This is used to capture candidate details for CXC's suite of offerings. E-assessment administration. E-assessments are delivered via an electronic device and may include videos, audio clips, hyperlinks, animation, interactive quizzes, and the use of ICT interactivity. This allows for the immediate uploading of test data, which allows results to be issued more quickly. E-marking. Completed examination papers are scanned into an online environment suitable for their retrieval, marking, and storage through the e-marking process. E-grading. Candidates' scores are loaded in batches into the examination processing system. E-grading also reduces the probability of errors. E-results. CXC is developing a secure platform to enable employers, learning institutions, and other entities to validate the authenticity of the certification offered. The transformation of CXC's core business components will improve efficiency and flexibility and improve monitoring and control mechanisms used to ensure quality. The e-transition strategy will also expand access to examination offerings and lead to increased satisfaction.